And she said, I'm shocked that you are still here. And I said to her, you know what, that we started gathering here in 2014 when Crimea was annexed. I still have a picture somewhere from 2014 from this very rally. 11th year we are here. It might be 818 days since the full-blown invasion, but it is 11th year of this war. Thousands of people have died since 2014 in occupied regions. Putin was denying that any Russian soldiers are there. Later he admitted they were there. Putin had on numerous occasions had denied that Wagner mercenaries are anything to do with Russian government. Last summer he admitted they do. The amount of war crimes that Russia has committed is escalating every single day, while our allies hesitate or are scared of Russian blackmail or bluffing. Remember one thing, Russia is a terrorist state.
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 Stop Russia, stop the war.
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 And this is why we gather here every Wednesday at 6 p.m. for 2 hours, every Friday at 6 p.m. for 2 hours, and every Sunday at 3 p.m. for 2 hours. This is why we have fundraisers regularly. This is why some of us, many of us, or volunteers, we wake up at 4 on Easter Sunday, we stand outside churches at 6 a.m. and we gather funds to buy drones, to buy equipment. I buy some stuff from my own money for my cousin who is on the front line since December. Every single Ukrainian family has a friend or a family member on the front line. One of my cousins, my other cousin Sergey, who lives in the Lviv region, his neighbor got killed. He was a police officer. He volunteered to the front line in 2022 and he got killed on a landmine that Russians left. More than 500,000 miles, 500,000 mines are just next to Belarusian border, because we can't trust Belarusians until one dictator is aiding another dictator. So this is why we need that air defense to protect our sky. This is why we need those F-16s to protect our civilians. Air defense for Ukraine.
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 F-16s for Ukraine.
F-16s for Ukraine.
F-16s for Ukraine.
F-16s for Ukraine.
And in last 2 weeks, we shot down at least 4 of their fighter jets. I don't know if it was a fighter jet bomber or just a fighter jet. But we have the bare minimum, and like Zelensky said, finally we can equal the artillery shells that are falling at us. At the last 6 or 7 months, to 1 artillery shell shot by Ukrainian army in self-defense, 6 to 7 were flying our way. Yet we stand. Because of our resilience, Finland had the time to join NATO. Because of our resilience, Ukraine is rewriting European and world history. Sweden no longer wants to be neutral. 200 years Sweden was neutral. She is not neutral anymore because it's too close to Russia. Russia is the worst neighbor you can have. Russia is the worst ally you can have. Ask any Belarusian. Ask any Syrian civilian. Ask any civilian in Ukraine, Mali, Burkina Faso, Central African Republic, Niger. The list goes on and on. Russia as a terrorist state is not a Ukrainian problem. Russia is a world problem. Because when Russia bombs Odessa ports, they are destroying your food, not ours. Russia is destroying your food, not ours. Because Russia is a terrorist state.
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 More sanctions on Russia.
More sanctions on Russia.
More sanctions on Russia.
More sanctions on Russia.
No trade with Russia.
No trade with Russia.
No trade with Russia.
No trade with Russia.
As I mentioned on our previous war rallies, history is being made. Putin is complaining. More than 16,000 individual and joint sanctions. That's too much, he says. Every single Ukrainian who is hiding every single day in a bomb shelter and wakes up with air sirens at 4 o'clock in the morning, we say no amount of sanctions is enough for scumbag terrorists and generational war criminals. Their parents attacked another country. Their grandparents were raping German women during World War II. More than 2 million women got raped by USSR soldiers during World War II. Now, considering that information, what are they actually celebrating in May, on the 9th of May? Russia is a terrorist state.
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 More sanctions on Russia.
More sanctions on Russia.
More sanctions on Russia.
More sanctions on Russia.
And this is why we gather here. This is why we raise money. And this is why we are flying our flag. As long as Ukraine stands, we will support Ukraine. Until our victory, we're gonna gather here. Until our victory, we're gonna support Ukraine. It's not something that we want to do, to be here. To be here is a necessity. Russians forced us to be here for 11 years. We were here from 2014. And many were telling us, enough, go home. Putin got what he wanted. There was a big celebration. Crimea joined the family of a castrated USSR 2.0. Russia became a little bit bigger. That's it. The end. This will be over. And in the middle of the night, on 24th of February 2022, they attacked us like cowards they are. They attacked us like terrorists they are. And since 24th of February 2022, for 818 days, with no a single day off, they are bombing our power stations, our schools, our hospitals, our churches, public places like shopping malls. We have months and months of footage from the shopping malls that they have bombed. They say they were used by military. We have a lot of evidence to prove otherwise. They are not interested in any evidence. Russians are scumbag terrorists and invaders. They always been and they will until they are stopped. This is the first war for Ukraine. We never had any war veterans before this war because we never attacked anyone. And right now, we are not attacking anyone. We are defending ourselves because self-defense is no offense. Arm Ukraine.
Self-defense is not offense. Arm Ukraine.
Self Self-defense is no offense. Arm, arm, arm Ukraine.
Self-defense is not offense. All Ukraine.
And those of you who haven't heard the news or you haven't been on few of our last war rallies, please have a look. The sanctions are working. Gazprom has announced. I'll give you the source. Please look it up. The source is very famous. It's Forbes. And for last year, 2023, Gazprom had a loss of over $7 billion, first time in a quarter of a century. Guess who was the president last time Gazprom had losses? Yeltsin. Guess who is overlapping Stalin this year? Putin. Guess because of whose war Gazprom has losses first time. Do you think the world doesn't need gas? The world needs gas. You just don't need Russian gas. Because Russia is a terrorist state.
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 Stop Russia, stop the war.
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 Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
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 And is